Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to baking a cake. At the same time I'm going to decorate the cake as well. It's under Thayo the little bus theme. Let's see what are the ingredients we need for the cake, and then I'm going to give the instruction to the baking cake decorating. Let's get started. For this we need 500 gram butter, 500 gram flour, 430 grams sugar, 180 gram cocoa powder, 10 eggs, quarter teaspoon bicarbonate soda, 1 teaspoon baking powder. I'm going to make this into a all-in-one method. For this I'm using stand beater. So I'm going to keep the bowl in a measuring scale and bring the unit to the zero and weigh out my butter first, then add the sugar. Then I'm going to keep the sieve on and again put the unit into the zero and add my dry ingredients. So flour, cocoa powder, bicarbonate soda and baking powder. Once I add the dry ingredients, I'm going to mix the dry ingredients by whisker. That helps me to mix all ingredients together. If you are doing like a creamy method, you're supposed to sieve 3 times all the dry ingredients. Because of this is all-in-one method, I just doing like this, and I'm cracking eggs one by one to the same bowl. Make sure if you are cracking the eggs, just crack into the small bowl and add back to this mixture to avoid any spoiled eggs mixing into the other ingredients. If not, if you mix any kind of spoiled egg, you need to throw away all the ingredients and measure from the beginning. I'm using the K beater. For all my cakes I'm using most of the time the K beater. From the beginning I'm starting with the speed 1 and increase to the 2. Once all ingredients thoroughly mixed together, then I am raising up the speed to the 4 or 5 for a 4 to 5 minutes. In the middle of the mixing I am topping the beater and scrape off the bowl with the spatula to make sure all the ingredients thoroughly mixed together. Once I done that, and I'm going to beat again another couple of minutes. If I see the batter comes like without any lumps, then I'm going to divide the batter into the 2 dishes. I took here 2 dishes. The measurement of the dish was 11 by 7 inches. So I am divide the batter equally to portions. At the same time I'm just give few batters to cupcakes. Managed to make like a 17 cupcakes from this. In this baking tray I just grease with the butter and dust it with the same flour. Once I divide the batters equally, I'm trying to level up with the palette knife, and in the preheated oven I just keep the temperature 170 20 minutes. Keep in mind every ovens are different. The temperature at the same time the time will be changed depending on your oven. And for this cake I just left to half an hour to cool down the cake before I start to laying out. Once my cake is cooled down, I start to trim off the top part to bring it to the level. So you will get like 4 pieces, and I am going to spread the jam. This is like a low sugar jam. I just made this for my son's birthday, so I don't want to give too many sweet cakes and things for the party, and I know there's so many things to eat for the birthday time with too many sweets. So I reduced the sugar from the cake when I'm baking it, and here I spread 1 layer jam and then laying out one by one. Once the layers are set, I just bring that to on my cake board and start to trim off the edges. So once the cake is shaped, I'm going to spread the jam all around the cake before I cover with the fondant. So here I'm taking a 1 kg fondant, which is ready-made one. I'm start to knead the fondant and then start to roll to the correct size of the cake. So make sure whatever stick to the fondant, pick it off. Once you spread the jam to the cake, make sure wipe off any excess sticking to the board. So you can use the clean kitchen towel, then cover the cake. With the help of rolling pin, you can lift the fondant and lay onto the cake. With the smoother, I just leveling up a little bit. Then in the sides, I'm trimming off the excess. Always I trim as quick as it comes. I'm not working on too long extra pieces because it can little bit bother me or working space, and it takes so many times if you have extra pieces hanging in here to there. So I literally little by little try to shape it off the sides and around the cake. When you are working on the fondant, you don't need to worry about the holes or crack marks. You can fix it with the fondant, because when you are warming up the fondant with your hands, it joins together and you can hide the fondant and you can hide the cracks and things. So once I covered, I just try to shape it up with the smoother, get the nice sharp points. Not really a very sharp point, just a little. So whatever excess comes, I just try to trim off with this tool. So I'm going to cover the roof. I'm measuring the roof. I'm taking for this red color fondant and rolling out, and then measuring the cake top. It's like a 3 by 9. So I take the same measurement to the red color fondant and cut it off the same size. As you can see, the reference picture shows like a red color roof, so that's what I was following. So once I have cut those roof piece, I just going to use some edible glue to the top of the white color cake fondant to fondant. It will be stick. Once it's done, I'm just lay out the red part and smooth it out with a smoother. I don't want to keep it as a sharp edge, so try to bring it to shape as much as possible. Once I am happy with the roof of the garage, I just giving extra details as the reference picture. Like this kind of sharp tool, I just try to put the small stripe lines, and then in the front of the garage, I just divide the 4 lines like equally, so it helps to fix me the garage doors. I took the red color fondant and with the help of ruler just trim off the size, and I just scale the size of the dough how height I want and trim off the excess. With this reference, I was cutting the rest of the fondant as well, and again like taking the reference from the picture and using the same 4 colors. It goes like red, yellow, blue, green. And once I cut all 4 pieces, I just start to stick that to the cake, and make sure when you are sticking, you are giving equal space between each other. So it takes a little bit time to balance the space between, so just to get little bit time to manage the. Once you stick all four pieces, I used this silicone tool to just hide the sharp edge and make it bring it to the smooth edge. If not, you can use your fingers to smooth the edges. And I'm going to make the roof. You can see I just marked 1.5 inch both sides and then the center point as well. So I can put two chimneys to the sides and the one center part as well. I bring it to the cylinder shape. I made two this size of cylinder shapes and two flat disc shape with the same light gray color. Once I made that, I'm going to roll some yellow fondant and I'm cutting to half. You can see the fat cylinder shape piece. I'm taking that and spread few glues around that cylinder and stick that yellow part to that cylinder and try to flat it up with my fingers to bring it equal size. I don't want it to emburst, so that's why I try to make it flat. So once I flat it up, I just try to stick that disc piece to the top and I do the same to the other one as well. Once I made two pieces, I just going to set onto the roof. You can see I just applying little bit of glue to the roof where I pointed or marked. Then I'm going to stick this chimney onto the roof, and with the rolling pin, I'm taking a small size rolling pin and just try to give a little press. Then I can create a little edge of that chimney. These are little extra details I'm giving to the cake. Once I did that part, I'm going to roll white color fondant. The cutter I'm using like a 2.2 inch diameter. It's roughly a 6.5 centimeter. So I just cut the circle from that and again using the yellow fondant to roll the cylinder size and stick that yellow fondant to the same white disc with the help of edible glue, and I again try to tap it a little bit to reduce the height of that yellow part. Then I'm taking the gray color fondant, rolling it to a long roll shape. So once I rolled it, I just cut it to the half from the lengthwise. So I'm taking one half to the top of the disc and another half goes to other side. So whatever excess come I was just trim off, and both joints I try to keep in a same side. So front will be a clean side so you can hide the joints from the behind of the cake. Once I stick that cake, I just try to smooth it up with that silicone tool. I was cutting the fondant. I used the same cutter to mark the center of that roof, which helped me to apply some edible glue onto it. I just try to stick that disc onto the same position. Try to give a little press so it will helps to hold the disc properly. With this tool, I just try to give a little dip to yellow color and take a box shape of white fondant to build up that top part as my picture reference shows. So I took white square shape piece and then small blue arch size piece, that blue piece onto a white with the edible glue. Then I try to trim off few strips with the yellow fondant and give extra details as the reference to my cake. So I attach those strips to side by side next to the blue piece, and as much as possible I add details to the cake. which will give me a little extra finishing look. These are the things takes extra time, so concentrate on your work and give just a little patient when you are doing it. And I am sticking that part onto the roof big disc in the center. Then I am poking a toothpick into the middle, which helps me to attach my clock onto that, because clock is going to be a little bit small part and it's not enough strength to stand it by own. Once I made the yellow part, I just get the little measurement from the same white part, is that correct size or not. Then taking a red fondant little piece and rolling out and just glue it on the edge of that yellow part and stick the red fondant onto it and remove the excess from that. Now moving on to the clock face, I'm taking a red color fondant, a small circle size, and just get the measurement on the yellow center point and make it roll and use the small rolling pin to create an edge on around the circle, and again like I'm using white color fondant, just a small tiny part to bring the dial to the clock with the white, and try to pour needles with the yellow fondant like small tiny pieces. Once I made my clock, I just start to poke onto that toothpick and I'm just attaching it. And moving on to my buses, it was tiny buses, and I was taking the reference again to get the shape of the bus, because every buses are different from this picture. Some are height, some are thin, some are big and flat. So I just try to manage the shape and the colors as it is. I'm not going to give a very big details for, because this is just for myself. I'm making the cake, so I just try to keep it as simple as possible, and as I try to finish it very fast, the cake. Once I made bus shapes, and I just put the hood top of that with the small pieces, and I bring like a white small tiny bowls to create that ice on the buses. So try to take like a very tiny small pieces. With the help of small bowl tool, I just spread little bit glue to the place, and with the bowl tool I just try to poke in the middle to make a hole in the middle like a shape of the eyes. I did that all 4 buses. Then I moving on to the mouth part. You can see the reference, it was like mouths are individually different shapes and the different size, so I try to stick to the reference picture. So I try to bring the shape and the size as it is. So there's a little bit of crack here to there in the buses, so I don't bother with that. As I said, it's to my home. If you are doing to order, make sure you need to hide each and every single things. Once I place the mouths, I start to color the ice bowl with the black edible paint. I use the small bowl tool again to mark the eyeballs with the black, and you can see I just literally painting it with the ballpoint. You can use edible paints, or if not you can use as I using the edible colors as well. For the windows screens, so I use the brush to color the sides and things, side windows and front window, everything with the same color. At the same time, I'm going to use it to the wheels as well. You can cut the wheels from the fondant. I just skip that part. I just color the fondant with the edible color without cutting the fondant to the wheels. If you want to go more detailed buses, yes, of course you can use that. The same color, I am using a very fine paintbrush to give a fine lines to that chimneys. Just as much as possible I try to give a details, and the reference picture shows the lines are angled, so I do the same way. And now you can see I am trying to draw a wheels to the buses. For now I just mark the bus wheels like that. Once I keeping on to the board, I'm trying to give a extra details. You can see a little bit later on. For the cake board, I am trying to dust with the icing sugar, and with a little bit of water I just try to spread the icing sugar all around the board. That's how I was covering the board. I'm not using too many edible glues to the board. For the board, I'm taking the gray color fondant, but not like the earliest lighter color. I just adding little bit extra edible color to bring the color a little bit bright. I'm not in a whole one sheet. I just try to bring the rest of the fondant pieces, small pieces. I'm going to join it here. As I said, fondant you always join and smooth it out, and you won't see the joints. Try to roll it with the roller and make sure wherever you can see the board, you can just try to use any kind of tool to cover that board with the fondant, and then take your small roller and just roll it out all the areas where you cover the fondant, and you can hide the crackers and things. And I'm going to use this silicone mold to create my floor texture. You can see, rather than you're leaving the plain board, you can give a little bit texture so it will highlight your cake. And I make sure I try to cover all the board with the same fondant, and nobody going to eat that fondant from the board, so don't try to waste your fondant to the board too much. Once I cover the board, I start to laying out my buses onto the board, and make sure this cake not going to travel. If your cake is traveling long distance, to ensure you seal the buses with the edible glue. And again, this is going to be inside my house, so I don't want to seal it very harder. It's not going to shake or replace the. You can see now I'm coloring the wheels. I color to the bus, at the same time I color to the board as well, so it looks like a 3D effect. At the same time it looks like a bus was standing on the board. Once I finish coloring the wheels, I just start to dust board with a gold color and silver color shade. Keep the brush around 45-degree angle, which helps me to cover the top layer, not into the holes, so you can see depth on the board. It seems little bit effect of road, and it's shiny and so detailed. Once I finished, I just try to use the fine brush to mark the numbers of the clock. Just put the small lines around the clock. Now I'm moving on to the press the name onto the cake. These are font which you can press to the fondant. You can buy it Amazon or online or any cake supplier shops. I arrange first the font in the table to make sure the length of the name layout on the cake into the center. Once I arrange, I just try to press one by one letters. Just give a little press onto the fondant, go depth to the font, and you will see the font on the fondant. Once I have completed all the name, I just use the paintbrush to give a little paint with the gold color, and again gold color, once you painted, it won't show properly, so you need to paint twice. So between each time you need to give a little time to dry, because so once all done, I just take all the rest of my fondant, the colors one, and I bring into the marble effect and make a bowl. Then with the bowl tool I try to make a hole in the middle like a donut. So I need two pieces of that to create a number 8, and once I create one zero, like a zero shape, one part, I just stick that part onto the board and then create the next one and stick top of that. So that's how I create the number 8 with the fondant. And finally, this is how my cake was finished. And you can see after I cut the cake, there's no fillings, only jam. I hope you enjoy this video. I'll see you in my next video. Please stay tuned to my channel. Until then, bye from Chef Fatima Chef Knows.